am Dr. Vidya Patil and I will be guiding you through this course. In the previous videos, we have learned about the writer O. Henry and also understood the story The Gift of the Magi. Now in today's video, we will try to understand the important themes which have been discussed in this story. So students, every story conveys a certain message and has a certain idea around which the entire story revolves. As I have already told you earlier, that this story tries to give us a moral lesson about the importance of giving gifts and also makes us realize what is the true value of gifts. So students, in today's video, let us now begin and try to understand the different themes which have been brought out in the story, The Gift of the Magi. So students, let us now try to understand the different themes in the story, The Gift of the Magi. As I have already told you, The Gift of the Magi is a famous Christian parable. A parable is nothing but a small story which gives us a moral or a spiritual lesson and tries to teach us something which Jesus Christ has explained in the Gospels. This parable is about gift giving, and this story takes place in the backdrop of abject poverty of the young couple. It is the time of Christmas, and this setting provides a comparison between the gifts given by the young couple to each other and the gifts of the Magi. The themes in O. Henry's Gift of the Magi can basically be these four: value, love, sacrifice, and beauty. So students, let us now have a look at each of these different themes. The first important theme here is that of value. The young couple, Della and Jim, lack in material possessions. In spite of Jim working so hard, he is not able to earn enough and they are quite poor. Even during the Christmas time, they are living in a shabby apartment and have not been able to save enough money to get good presents for each other. This story focuses on their poverty and their need or their desire to give a beautiful gift to their partner. Despite this poverty, the Della and Jim are very happy and contented with each other. When Della buys the chain, the platinum chain for Jim, she also expresses that though the chain is not very fancy, it is just like Jim, who doesn't have a lot of material wealth, but who is a very good and loving human being. So, value is something which is very subjective. The narrator, at one point of time, when he talks of the prized possessions of Della and Jim, which was Della's hair and Jim's watch, he compares them to Queen Sheba and King Solomon. They had huge treasures, and the prized possessions of Della and Jim was nothing compared to the actual treasure which King Solomon owned. But this concept of value is subjective. For them, these were the most prized possessions. It was of more value than the treasures of King Solomon. So, we find that in this story, poverty does not seem to affect the love of Jim and Della for each other. The emotional value of having each other, of knowing that both are ready to sacrifice their most loved possession for the happiness of them, is more gratifying for them than the actual gift. So students, from this story, we can understand that true value lies in appreciating the good qualities in the people around us and not judging them by the worth or the value of the gifts which they give to us. Della and Jim have proved that in spite of the poverty, they truly loved each other and were ready to sacrifice their most prized possession. The next important theme of the story is beauty. The gift of the Magi story constantly contrasts the theme of inner value and inner beauty and value. So, generally, we tend to judge people or value them because of their external appearances, but fail to recognize their inner virtues. Here, the writer has tried to bring out this point and shows us that it is the inner beauty which is of more importance than your external appearance. Della's hair symbolizes her own youth and beauty. She was a very young, beautiful woman who loved her husband a lot. When she had got her hair cut, she was quite anxious because she was afraid that her husband may no longer like her because she has got her long hair cut. But when Jim assures her that no matter what she does with her hair, he would never stop loving her, she is filled with joy. Instead, Jim appreciates her generosity. He appreciates her desire to sacrifice her most prized possession in order to get a gift for him. And the entire story ends on a satisfying note. So, students, the other important theme from this story, which we all need to learn and understand, is that outer beauty is of not as much importance as inner beauty. So, learn to develop beautiful values which will actually add to your beauty. The next important theme is love. In this story, we find that Della and Jim's love for each other is of greater importance than any other thing. Initially, at the beginning of the story, we find that Della is very sad because she has not been able to collect enough money to buy a gift for Jim. Here, she is not complaining about her poverty, but is only expressing her concern that she has not been able to save enough in order to get a gift for Jim. Here, giving the gift is not as important as her wish or desire to express her love for Jim. This is what we need to recognize and we need to appreciate. After the twist ending, where we find that both Jim and Della have brought gifts by sacrificing their most prized possessions, we now realize that the gifts are completely useless for them. While the gifts may be useless for them and may no longer serve any purpose, the idea behind or the intent behind giving these gifts is more important. Here, from this story, we realize that love triumphs over all material possessions. Because both of them truly loved each other, they did not mind that they had to sacrifice their prized possession and that even after sacrificing, their gifts were of no purpose to them. So, the feeling of love and the fondness for each other was more important for them than the material goods or material wealth. So, students, what we can understand from this story is that love is the most important factor to bind people together and to give value to relationships. So, the last important theme from this story is sacrifice. Della and Jim have only two prized possessions. One is Della's hair and the other is Jim's watch. Both of them sacrificed these items which they valued the most so that they could give a gift on at the time of Christmas to each other. But these sacrifices do not seem to have served the purpose because these gifts were of no use to them now. Though the gifts are of no use to them now, they have been able to add value to their relationships by showing their generosity and having the will to sacrifice their valued possessions. The narrator compares Della and Jim to the three wise men, the Magi, who brought precious gifts for Jesus Christ at the time of his birth. He says that the gifts given by Della and Jim were the wisest of all. So, students, what you need to understand from this story is that the value of a gift lies in the intent behind it, in the extent of generosity, in the sacrifice which has gone into getting that gift for you, rather than its actual material value. Generally, we tend to judge people by the value of the or the cost of the gift which they have brought for us, with failing to recognize the actual value behind it. So, students, whenever you are giving a gift, you remember that the gift's true value comes from your actual intent and the generosity and sacrifice which is involved in bringing that gift. So, students, this story, which is set at the Christmas time, suggests that the writer wants to tell us that uh, in spite of the poverty which is there in the lives of Della and Jim, their true love for each other makes their relationship very valuable. So, he feels that this story gives us a sense of hope so that we can hope for a better world and a brighter future. He says that simple, unselfish human love is the only hope for this mankind to survive. I think this message is much more apt for us in the situation in which we are now. At present, with all this COVID crisis happening all around us, and with so much of misery which we are seeing in the lives of so many people, it is only this unselfish human love, this generosity and sacrifice, and this true love which can help us win over this situation and which can bring us back to a better world. So, students, you must now have understood that the major theme of this story is that the greatest gift which we can ever give anyone is our unconditional love for them. This has been very nicely depicted through the sacrifices made by Della and Jim for each other. So, from this story, we can understand that love is more important than prized and valuable possessions. Students, from this video, you must now have understood what is the importance of qualities such as love and sacrifice. We have also understood that when we judge a person for the value of his gifts, we should try to understand the generosity and sacrifice which that person has made in getting the gift for you. Students, I am sure you must have liked this video and learned many important values which will help us in our lives. I hope you liked this video